Nick, welcome. We're glad to have you here today.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I have just enjoyed all of our conversations to date. I think that one of the things I super appreciate about you is that you have not only been in the weeds, you've been on boots on ground and so many experiences. I know you've worked with, I think, TD Ameritrade, you've worked in a variety of with a variety of financial services businesses, I should say, but that's not like your 100% sweet spot. I know you work with other companies as well, but you've seen like the nitty gritty in the weeds of all kinds of production to the very, very high level strategy of really being able to go in and really unpack some of the really difficult questions and be able to change and shape culture and adjust course. So I'm excited to get into that today. And more specifically, we're going to get really into the role of what is the role of the CMO, or
Hmm.
how do we kind of unpack that today?
Yeah.
So before we do that, do you mind just sharing with folks a little bit about your background, go into that a little bit more and your experiences?
Yeah, I've been in or near wealth management for the bulk of my career. I was an advisor
Yeah.
for almost 10 years, sold my book of business, ended
Mhm.
up moving into more kind of enterprise executive roles. And part of that was a CMO kind of slash COO role for
Mhm.
a small to mid-size RIA. And really found that I was falling in love with these repeated themes
Yep.
that were keeping RIA businesses sort of locked in a cycle that wasn't working, right? And it's
Mhm.
part of what fed the consolidation era that we're in now. This was in the mid 2010s,
Mhm.
that there were just questions that people were having a really hard time answering, and
Yep.
consolidation increasingly became an answer
Mhm.
in the M&A environment. So I created CultureCraft to start to give people tools to unlock these questions, right?
Yep.
A lot of them apply to wealth managers and wealth management firms. It's
Yep.
really any entity that has to leverage trust to grow the business. And everybody says,
Yep.
well, trust is the engine of growth for every business. It
Mhm.
is, but it's different in these long-term, high-dollar relationships
Mhm.
like investment management and the
Yep.
RIA world than it is if you're a bakery, right? I mean, a bakery
Mhm.
has to be trustworthy. They're not going to poison the cookies, right?
Right, right. Yes.
Different in the kind of trust-based organizations that we work with, like those in the RIA wealth management space.
Yes, it's so true. And it's a long sales cycle, right? And
Absolutely.
trust can be built in so many ways. I mean, we can unpack the marketing component. You can look at it even from operations, right? Operations impacts like
Yes.
just are you going to get the same product? Like, is it going to be at a certain quality? I mean, you could go a variety of angles. So, um, and in particular, let's get to the CMO level, right? It's trust within the numbers and being able to talk to the C-suite. It could go a variety of directions. So let's kind of go into like CMO
Yeah.
role
Yeah.
world. Like you see the high level. How do you see the role of the CMO today?
Yeah. I mean, I've been either in a full-time or in a fractional capacity, a CMO at a wealth management firm multiple times.
Hmm.
And I would say that the CMO role is as in trouble as it's ever been. I mean, it is really a tough job.
It
And
is.
if you're watching the trades, right, a high level CMO cycles off every about 18 to 24 months out of the big brand name firms.
Hmm.
And there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. It's because the role is not well designed for the
Hmm.
current environment. It's because the majority of people hiring for it have never seen a great one, so they don't
Yep.
know what they're hiring for.
Yep.
And they also don't know how to do division of labor among the C-suite that
Hmm.
validates the CMO's expertise.
Hmm.
So that, I mean, I've talked to multiple, large RIA founders who are trying to figure this out. Do we need a
Hmm.
CMO? If we do, what do they do?
Yep.
How is that different than these other things that other people are doing?
Hmm.
Because they've defaulted to a more heavily tactical director style role
Yep.
or an outsourced partner. Either
Yep.
one can work. Um, but they have big strategy questions that no one in the building can answer.
Yep. It's so true. Um, Harvard Business School put together a great article on this, and it goes through these different roles of kind of the definition of the CMO. To your point earlier about you've got to have you've got to have strong input to have strong output. Can you talk a little bit more about that different types of input for what the role of the CMO can look like today? either through title or job description or that sort of thing? Is a big question to be able to unpack.
Yeah, for sure. So what you want, I think, is if we take the title off it, and then we'll put the title back on at the end.
Yeah.
If you take the title off it, in a wealth management or kind of trust style business, you want someone who says growing the brand and
Yep.
growing the business is an equal equation to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I am going to take ownership of both. Now, on the growing the business side, they have to do collaboration with
Right.
other business development people. That
Right.
might be head of sales, it might be a head of advisory,
Right.
could be different roles in different firms. But
Yep.
you want that CMO that's very comfortable saying, I'm not here to just give you marketing metrics.
Right.
I
Right.
am here to comfortably sit and say, we will grow the firm
Yes. Yes.
organically, tactically, in collaboration with the advisors and the other business development folks in the building. If you're going to pay top dollar for a head of marketing, you know,
Uh-huh.
250, 300 plus,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's what you need.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you need.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have that, somebody else has to take that spot.
Yep.
And in many firms, there's a gap there
Mm-hmm.
because your business development people came out of usually advisory, they've been advisors,
Yep.
but they don't have a concept of the entire toolkit
Mm-hmm.
or the entire growth toolkit, all the things
Yep.
they can do. Or you have people that have come out of sort of classic marketing channels,
Uh-huh.
and they're just embedded in kind of 2017 marketing,
Yes. Yes. Or just hyper tactical.
hyper
Yeah.
tactical, right?
Yeah.
What we in our world call the tactical hamster wheel is we're going to
Mm-hmm.
go from SEO to blogs to
Just
events to
taking it all and trying
yeah,
to just do it, like trying to
yeah.
squeeze everybody. Yep.
And it's what irritates the hell out of people about marketers because they're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I don't really care how many clicks or views or whatever,
Right, right,
right?
right.
What did this actually do for the business? Your
Yeah.
CMO needs to be able to easily answer that question. They have
Yep.
to have a business acumen to be
Yep.
able to do that. I would say that's really, really rare in the wealth space, both from a talent perspective, because the industry hasn't produced that kind of talent,
Mm-hmm.
and from an organizational design perspective,
Yep.
because executives don't know how to build the org with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And and it creates these gaps. There's a direct correlation between the failure of the CMO role in wealth management and the just absolute halt in organic growth.
Mm-hmm.
These two things are correlated,
Mm-hmm.
and they're caused by similar issues.
Yep, I hear you. And even if you were to get back to the root of the cause, just the clarification of the role to begin with, um, just that clarity, like you said, trying to answer those tough questions at the top. And then I also think that you kind of alluded to that there's folks that are, they're pushing all the activities. But one thing that you said earlier that I think is really critical is this idea of collaboration.
Mhm.
And I think that's so much a part of the role of the CMO. It's being able to
Absolutely.
literally go around, have those one-on-ones, and really be able to influence and persuade and also drive the agenda, against
Yes.
the bigger picture strategy, which is something that is much, easier said than done. So,
Yeah, I want to just pause there for just a second because I wrote about this morning on LinkedIn thinking about this meeting. The CMO is the most collaborative role in the C-suite.
mm,
The CMO, when it's functioning correctly,
yeah.
is hand in glove with org dev. It's
Hmm.
hand in glove with advisory,
So
CX,
agree.
business development. It's hand in glove with the CEO owning the
Yes.
brand, right? So that is part of the challenge from even a leadership capacity standpoint is as a CMO, you have to make the case for your value all day long, every day, and you have to be a grown up about it. And you can't go
Yep.
on LinkedIn whining about how mean people are to marketers. You just have
Yep.
to get to that cycle.
Yep.
But you also have the humility to say, I don't really get to take credit for anything by
Hmm.
myself because
Hmm.
everything I'm doing succeeds in collaboration.
Hmm.
That's the ABCs of a marketing leader.
So true. That's so well said. And I think that's almost hard to be able to communicate up front because it is so intertwined with everything. I
Yes.
mean, operations, the way that things flow, they're communicated from onboarding to offboarding and the tone that's set there. the sales team, making sure that they're really heard and that they have their needs. And it's not about like a shotgun, everybody across all departments wants this, but it's about really setting the big picture strategy and then being able to get everybody behind that, is reducing the shiny object syndrome. So,
Yeah,
uh, yeah, which is again easier said than done. So,
absolutely.
um, what do you see? Because you go into these kind of conversations, right? And you're unpacking them with teams and leadership. And what is that big picture strategy process like to be able to kind of unpack it? What does the timeline look like? And what advice would you give maybe to a CMO, or maybe I should even say to a business leader that's thinking about kind of unpacking that strategy? Like, what would they need to do to be able to go in or prepared before they go into that actual conversation so that they're set up for success, so that they've got the big picture, they can reduce the shiny object syndrome, and everyone's set up for success?
Yeah, I mean, that's like a masterclass in of itself, but we'll try and do it in a
Totally. Yeah.
concise way, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I tell leaders is the reason why mirrors exist is because none of us know what our face looks like. And the big challenge for even very smart, and I've just talked to so many of them in the RIA space, very smart, very successful leaders who've grown,
Yep.
into that nine-figure revenue size
Yeah.
and below, but just really healthy firms.
Yeah.
And they can't tell you why their firm works.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first challenge
Mm-hmm.
is somebody has to be able to go, this is why this place works.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the things that if we invested in them more, it would work better.
Mm-hmm.
That level of just like
Clarity.
clarity.
Yeah.
And it's not anybody's fault. It's just the RIA wave was just that. It was a wave.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everybody wrote it in fairly similar ways, even though every firm is unique. There was sort of
Mhm.
this continuity to the wave.
Yeah.
And now we're on the back end of that wave in a different era.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, well, I have to figure this out, not for the whole industry anymore, but for me.
Yes. Yeah.
There are unique identities. So some people call that branding, some people call it positioning. All of those things come into play, but there is just that sense of this is who we are and this is how we're going to progress into the
Mm-hmm.
future. I think that takes some form of third-party analysis, self-review, et cetera. Some
Yeah.
firms we come to have some of that already. They've done that work.
Yep.
Obviously, that accelerates the process. Now, so let's say you've done that work. If you've
Mm-hmm.
done that work now, the question is, okay, we know we want to grow with in these markets, or we want to do this mix of acquisition and this
Right.
mix of organic, whatever it might be. Now it's what are the actual strategies? What are we going to do in the next 6 months, 12 months, et cetera, to make that happen? And that's when marketing starts to come into the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And almost always the firm has a level of maybe not as far as distrust, but distaste for
Mm-hmm.
marketing. There's
Mm-hmm.
been some disappointments. There's been leadership churn. Marketing has been put in a fulfillment role, make
Uh-huh.
shiny objects for us.
Yep.
Marketing doesn't like it. The firm doesn't like it.
Yep.
So the next question we work with the business leader on is, are you willing to fix that?
Uh-huh. And by fixing that means like a shift in culture, a shift of
Yes.
expectations, all of these things.
Yeah, it's really across the what I call the trust dynamic. So it's
Mm-hmm.
across cultural, it's across org design,
Yep.
it's across budgeting, it's across
Yes.
all these factors.
Yes.
Sometimes a business leader will hear that and go, "Oh, you're just telling me I got to spend a bunch of money." No,
Yep.
absolutely not. I got to test for willingness first. Are we open to this?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to do lots of great tactical stuff along the way. And I know you and I have tactical stuff we want to talk about today.
Right,
We're going
right,
to do
right.
tactical stuff along the way, but we've got to see that tactical stuff as a journey to a more holistic
Yep.
growth engine that is multifaceted and not dependent on any one magical thing. Because all those
Mm-hmm.
magical things are incredibly fragile today, which is again
Mm-hmm.
why organic growth is failing.
Yep.
So we try to get you in a place where we're making tactical progress while
Uh-huh.
also strategic shift within 8 to 12 weeks.
Oh, that's relatively short.
Yeah, because the big thing that needs to happen is you need to have wins,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
just gotta everybody's got to have a win, even
Yeah.
if that means though, even if that means working with a great agency to create a great deck,
Right,
or
right, right.
an event tool that we can repurpose or
Right.
something like that. We need your growth mindset to shift, and part of shifting is just having different experiences.
Yep.
So what I always tell people is, it isn't this we're going to disappear into a conference room for a year
Yeah.
and then come out with
Write all this fine print, make everything
yes, right,
perfect. It's going to sit on the wall, like a book that's going to sit on the wall or on the
exactly
shelf or
right.
whatever. Yeah, yeah. You're good where I'm going. Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be sleeves rolled up,
Yeah.
scratched up arms in the garden, right,
Right.
and the dirt on the fingernails. We're on our way to a
Yep.
strategic shift.
Yep. So for CMOs that have lost the trust of the C-suite,
Yeah,
is that where you see you basically need a bolt to be able to come in? And somebody has a different voice like yourself or a team,
yeah.
or is it in the it sounds like it's really a pause, readjust, but readjust has to be a willingness to be able to say, yes, we are willing to shake this up in order
Yeah.
for this to be successful longer term.
Sometimes the marketing leader and the CEO, we'll just use those as sort of a stand-in for what we're talking about.
Right, right.
Sometimes the marketing leader and the CEO just need a third party to translate
Mm-hmm.
and to say, this is what he's been trying to say to you. This is what she's been trying to say to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And all of a sudden, we make a little bit of progress. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there has to be, again, everything's willingness, right? There has to be
Right.
a leading in from both
Yep.
parties. If either the CEO or the CMO are like, that bridge is burnt,
Yep. Then there's
then
not
it
trust.
then we just have to move on,
Yep.
right? And I hate
Yep.
that,
It just is what
but
it is.
it is what it is. We have to move on. That's not the case in most situations.
Yeah.
Everybody's got sunk costs, right? We've invested in each other. We're here. We want this to work. So when there's an existing marketing leader, we want to translate first
Mm-hmm.
and help that translation, and
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes reflect back to the CMO and say, hey, what you're saying makes a ton of sense. I know what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Your founder doesn't know what you're saying,
Yep. Yep.
or you're not hearing him,
Mm-hmm.
or right, is a lot of communication, because executive speak and marketing speak are just completely different vernaculars.
Yeah. 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 It's different jargon. It's different
Yeah,
worlds. Yep. And the only like sometimes similarities are things that are at the very end of the it's ROI, right?
yeah.
But there's a whole path to be able to get there. So
But even ROI is such a Rorschach test. Everybody
mhm.
means a different thing by it,
Yes, it's so true.
because usually when people bring up ROI, one of the first things I say is, great, how are you going to measure it?
Yeah.
Before you ask me, is this going to produce ROI?
Hmm.
How are you going to measure it?
Yep.
Because attribution is the hardest game in growth right now. Like, there's nothing harder right now than attribution.
Hmm.
How do you actually say this thing produced this revenue?
Hmm. Yep.
And so usually we're talking ROI in a very theoretical sense.
Hmm.
Like, I was talking to a senior or a COO at a larger firm not that long ago, probably 5 or 6 months ago. And he's like, well, we're just organizing things more so that what produces ROI and blah, blah,
Right,
blah.
right.
And I said, well, I listed 4 or 5 things that I knew he was in favor of us doing
Yeah,
that had happened in the previous months. I said, what about these 4 or 5 things? There's no way to prove ROI of those things.
right. But
And he
they're
goes,
still
well,
important.
right. But his immediate response was, well, we intuitively know those are valuable. Right. So
Mhm.
we had to get underneath these code
What that
words.
meant. Yeah. There's so much
Yeah.
power in that definition too, and really being able to unpack that as well.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Oh my goodness, you're right. There's so many master classes that could spin out of this
Yeah.
because I do want to ask before we get into some of the other tactical pieces. You had
Yeah.
talked about the situation when you come in, we kind of got into this idea of like there's an existing, we'll just say the title CMO, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they've lost trust with the C-suite or what have you. Is that situations that you're seeing a lot? Are you more seeing situations where the CMO, like there just needs to be a resetting. What are you seeing with these firms when you're coming in to partner with them and really kind of, um, yeah, take those
Yeah. I would say
eight
the
to
thing
12
that's
weeks.
most prevalent is that the firm has, because of just a lack of understanding of what a CMO marketing leader should do, has has set these expectations for the role that are impossible,
Mm-hmm.
and even haven't even necessarily communicated those
Yeah.
expectations, and have hired a person that has just no career experience to be able to fulfill those.
Yeah. They're just already
Like
walking in day one and not set up for success.
it just, I mean, there's just a lot, and I don't want to be disparaging. Anybody who's listening to this, all of
Right.
you, I believe in you, you're doing great work. There's a lot of quote unquote CMOs, VPs of marketing, et cetera,
Yep.
around the business that the title's too big for them.
Yeah. And yeah. And it's not okay. Like it's nice to have a flashy title, but with certain expectations, it's not going to get you really the company what they want.
Yeah,
So,
and everybody's going to be frustrated.
yeah.
So it feels good initially to have the big title, but with the big title comes big expectations.
Yep.
And particularly in marketing, it's expectations that no one knows how to verbalize.
Yep.
So you gotta know that you're ready for the big dance. You have to have thought about strategy. You have to have thought about growing the business. I mean, talk
Yep.
to marketing leaders who are like, I'm ready. I want the big chair. I'm like, great. What should we do in this situation? And then they
Yep.
spin up things like, we should like do a cool holiday gift
Yeah.
strategy. I'm like,
Yes.
whoa.
Or sales is over here, like, and we need these five things and this is going to help us and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, let's execute. And you're like, yeah, it might be a people pleaser component now, but longer term, that's a habit and a pattern that you're creating and you're communicating that's not getting back to actually like, what does North look like? And does that actually map to the business strategy? And how do we reduce? Yeah, we worked with a company and one of the awesome things to be able to watch. It wasn't a CMO role, it was a COO role. Was a
Mm-hmm.
leader coming in and just hearing everybody and
Yeah,
really working closely across departments, working with leadership, getting buy-in, setting really like a high-level strategy that really took them like beyond 3 years.
I
That
believe
was
that.
very like you could see all the gaps and then it like there's so much more beyond that, right? But it was just what it did is it really helped to put energy and then you can put goals behind that. And that's, I think that model is something that is a CMO, again, for lack of better words, is can also take that same approach. And like you said earlier, pack in or fit with those across departments to make sure there's
Yeah.
alignment. So
Yeah. I mean, I think of one firm that we worked with that we just had to spend the first 3 or 4 months working with the team to figure out fulfillment. How are you going to
yeah,
get decks out the door? How are you going to get one pagers out the door? How are you going to
yeah,
get, and we knew that literally none of that was going to sell anything.
yeah, yeah,
But the needs and expectations of everybody was so broken down that you just have to start somewhere.
yes, totally.
Right. And so that's the magic of a really skilled marketing leader is they can go fast and go slow at the same time.
Hmm. So true. Yes, I know. Yeah, we use that internal go fast, go slow analogy as well because it's a good one, I feel like. It's a
Absolutely.
powerful one, right? It's the art of I mean, it's the art of strategy, like being able to manage that. So like you
Absolutely.
alluded to earlier, the wins. Okay, so I want to get in, just want to be mindful of time. I want to get into some more of the tactical questions.
Yeah.
I think each one of these actually could probably go on its own class as well, because there's a lot of stuff that could unpack here. We'll kind of hit you with a few questions here. So I thank you. I knew you'd share asked kind of got some questions from others prior to this. So
Yeah.
one of the questions that folks asked was, um, so if someone is entertaining outsourcing versus remaining in-house, like how do you determine, if you need to outsource someone or if you need to actually bring things in-house?
Yeah. So I'll give you the best case scenario answer, which 80% of people won't be able to answer. So we'll have to do a few other answers.
Yeah, yeah.
So the best case scenario answer is you know exactly how you want to grow the business
Mm-hmm.
and you know how quickly you want to do it and how long you're going to invest in it.
Mm-hmm.
If you know that, that probably answers it for you.
Mm-hmm.
So because if you're like, hey, we don't actually really know how we want to grow the business, but
Mm-hmm.
we need to support our advisors and we just need fulfillment and we need to just get the wheels moving and
Yeah,
we
yeah,
need fresh
yeah.
ideas. Integrated agencies like you guys is a great place for that.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
is we have a general sense of where we're headed, we're
Right.
open-minded,
Right.
and we need quick wins
Yep.
with people who are good collaborators.
Mhm.
That's about often is about partnering with the right agency.
Mm-hmm. Fair. It's a culture
Um,
fit.
yeah. The case for hiring is really about we are going to build a long-term growth engine and we
Hmm.
want to empower leadership to do it.
Yes. Yep.
So what we tell people we who are in that kind of mode is like, okay, if you're going to hire a person, a
Yep.
CMO, a whatever,
Yep.
just realize there's 10 hires after that,
Yes.
or
Yes.
maybe five,
Yep.
right?
It's so true. And
But
that's such a
don't
good expectation setting up top up front. Yep.
yeah, but don't hire one person to manage a bunch of agencies.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Don't hire one person and think that they're going to both make all your decks, do your social media, give you strategy for how to grow the business,
Yep.
collaborate with all your advisors with all their different ideas. That person will implode
Mm-hmm.
or lie to you or both.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Agree. Whew. So much good stuff. Okay, I've got another one for you. This one is a really, we could talk for a while. The question is, what's the best way to identify your ideal prospect? What tools you use and what filters? I feel like this is where I feel like we need to call in like Kristen Luke or, someone who's really focused on the whole
Yeah.
target market deep dive.
Yeah.
Um, just high level thoughts on that, because that's
Yeah,
a
I'll give you the
pretty,
one thing that we
yeah,
give people that we have a whole program for this, but I'll give you the one thing that tends to shift the dynamic for people the fastest
yeah.
is building your ideal client profile needs to first and primarily be about psychographics.
Mm-hmm.
It should be about how they think, how they
Yep.
feel, how they make decisions,
Mm-hmm.
what biases they come to the hiring a financial advisor decision with. It should
Mm-hmm.
not be about how much money they have,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're dentists, right? All your niche marketing demographic stuff flows out of your segmentation.
Mm-hmm.
And segmentation is a subset of ICP.
Mm-hmm.
So ICP is the person that you want to walk into every iteration of you, your office, your website, your
Yes.
social media, and go, oh, this people like me do stuff like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the shortcut is, oh, well, if it says dentist, do you have a financial advisor? We think we've solved that for people. But people, we've all lived on the internet too long. We all read through that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what actually works is, do I feel like I belong here? And
Mm-hmm.
that's because you've really thought through the psychographic of your ICP.
Yeah. And that's a deep level of thinking. That's like where you go down. I feel like the holes of, the black holes of the internet and trying to understand like what are people actually searching for and really listening in a different way and questions. And like it might sound silly, but like little things like, do they like Nespresso or do they, are they more of like I don't know, a Starbucks drinker? Like these nuances are little insights into the bigger
Yeah.
psychographic of the individual. So
I would say the other side, that all that's true. The other side of it is just to put teeth on this. So haven't been specific enough. Is like usually a place to extract it is who works well
mhm,
for your business.
mhm,
So
mhm.
if you're a firm that does a lot of team-based stuff,
Yep.
then your ideal client likes that.
Mhm, mhm.
If you're a firm that's very technical and delivers a lot of technical information and gives very big investment reports, then your ideal client profile likes that
Yep.
they're a technical person,
Yep.
right?
That's so fair.
So you
Yeah.
need to match your ICP. So sometimes the best way to extract an ICP is what do we do all the time that our favorite clients like?
Mhm.
And let's go find more people who like it.
Yep. Yep.
Because
And
otherwise
lean
you
into that
develop an
personality.
imaginary ICP
Yes.
that you have to rebuild your whole organization around, and that's going to fail.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Or something where you're trying to like force it and it just
Yes.
doesn't fit.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that same kind of framework can apply to hiring as well,
Absolutely.
and then you can lean into those little like the Nespresso example, right? It's like there's an energy here that it just whatever it is, it matches our our firm. So
Yeah, I mean, one more quick example on that. We worked with a firm to do this kind of work, and one of the things in their what we call client A profile is they want to feel exclusive. The client wants to feel like they went through the metaphoric glass doors.
yeah.
That tells you what kind of coffee to serve.
Hmm. Hmm.
Once you've decided that your ideal client has an exclusivity bias,
Right. Right.
and what they realized is their $1 million client and their $50 million client both had an exclusivity bias. They wanted
Yeah.
that to feel like
That's,
they were special.
mhm.
Then that tells you a lot of things.
Yep. And that
How to
impacts
decorate the
your,
office, what
yep.
kind of coffee to serve,
Yep.
how to do an intake on a client
Mhm.
intake. Like there's so many things that answers for you.
Yep. And then that's this example where it directly connects back to how marketing and operations and just across department all work together, right? You're doing a client intake form that impacts marketing, how it's put together, the experience that it's put together, so on and so forth. So just to try to kind of connect the dots there too. So,
Absolutely.
okay. So I got just a few more. We'll wrap it up. Want to be
I'll be fast. We'll
mindful.
go rapid fire. I'll be
I know.
faster.
Okay. Um, Best practices if you're integrating an outside agency. So, what should folks be asking themselves? What should they be preparing for? Are there any best practices to make sure that the relationship yields results?
I think the first thing you want to know is what's normal for your agency that you just hired.
Hmm.
Because if you make them play left-handed and they're right-handed, it's going to be bad.
Hmm.
So some of this gets handled in the hiring of the agency.
Right?
You want their normal engagement to feel good to you.
Hmm.
If they normally sit in on internal meetings and you want them in internal meetings, then that's great.
Yep.
If you're like, hey, we need you to sit in our internal meeting, maybe they're EOS, right? We want you to sit in our level 10, and they've never sat in a level 10 before.
It's going to be like, whoo.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
going to be a mess. It's going to be a
Yeah.
mess. Right. So some of that is in the hiring process. In
Yep.
terms of kind of just your own rule set is you want to make sure they have visibility to all the prerequisites to their success.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's part of the agency conversation is what do
Yep.
you need to know? What do
Right.
you need to see? What information you need to have access
Right.
to succeed?
Yep. Yep.
Because the bulk of tactical marketing has a ton of prerequisites.
Hmm.
So it's really getting agreement on how those prerequisites are going to happen
Yep.
and how they're going to have access to them.
Yep. And being comfortable sharing all of that. There's got to be a
Absolutely.
trust from the beginning. Because if you're going, I don't want to hand over, the keys to the castle, then that should also be a red flag, I think, to
Yeah, then you're
folks.
going to get what you're going to get. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
you just information is knowledge and it's going to be able to, help everybody win, but there requires a trust for that to be able to happen. So,
totally.
okay, well, I want to wrap things up. Any final thoughts that you want to share about just the role of the CMO, just thoughts and for either folks in leadership, C-suite positions, or even for CMOs themselves?
Yeah, I would say if you're in a CMO slash head of marketing role, you have to get really, really skilled in business strategy. Not
Mhm.
marketing strategy, business strategy. And
100%.
like that, like if you aren't on an aggressive growth curve with that,
Yep.
and I had the luxury, I came from an operation leadership role and where I was overseeing tech, operations, asset management, and marketing.
Yep.
And seeing all those together, and I was doing a bunch of training too. So I could see how everything affected everything else. So I
Yep.
got free education. If you're a CMO, you got to be on an upward slope there.
Yep.
Find a way. Um, and we have some tools that can help you with that are free. That if you want, we can help you with that. The if you're a business leader,
Hmm.
90% of the time, the marketing questions you think you have are not about marketing.
Yeah.
They're about growth.
Hmm.
And you've got to make the growth decisions first and then make the marketing decisions, unless you want to spend a bunch of money on activity
Tactics. Yeah,
tactics.
activity that can be like hamster in the wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So as a business leader, you have to be able to differentiate between your growth decisions and your marketing decisions because they are not the same.
yeah, so well said. And that's also such great input too for folks that are thinking about hiring and what they would want to be able to define as success before they actually even put together a job description. So,
Absolutely.
um, yeah. Okay, well, Nick, thank you so much for your time. I feel like we could talk here for
Yeah.
hours, so I'll spare everyone, but this is so fun. So I just want to do a shout out to, so I know you do tons of writing on LinkedIn. If you also go to additions.culturecraft.com, and there's a whole, I think, sign up for your e-newsletter or what have you. And then you've got a growth checklist as well. Do you want to talk to that briefly? I know it's, well, I'll let you,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and then you and I have talked about the growth check as well. That it's just this tool that we can use. This is a paid service, but it's a tool that we use. If you want that like 8 week unlock me, like
yeah,
I don't know where to start.
right, right.
That's what growth check is for.
Yep,
Is it takes all the factors that are impacting growth in your organization, it peels them apart. We do some surveying, we do a bunch of other stuff, and then we give you a prioritization that says you can act on these things next,
yep,
and you can walk away from CultureCraft at that point and take your own journey. We can continue to support you, but we really wanted to build this tool that allows people a very quick, very actionable, here's how we move forward next.
mhm.
So that's growth check. If that's useful to people, we have it available.
Great. Thank you so much, Dick. We'll make sure to look, link to all that below. And thank you for your time, providing your insights, and also just your deep expertise in this space across, so many levels of seeing what the CMO role is or isn't, but then also just how it impacts so many other bigger picture questions. So thank you again.
Yeah, enjoyed it. Thanks, Lauren.